House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday claimed without any evidence that angry constituents at town halls nationwide are actually paid Democratic protesters. Over the past week, there's been a wave of Republican lawmakers returning to their states and districts and facing citizens who are upset over the recent flurry of cuts in federal funding and mass layoffs, or even just outright confused about what's going on from Washington. The speaker brushed off concerns that those incidents could affect Republicans in the midterms.
We've seen the blowback that some Republicans in your caucus are getting when they go back home to their districts, worried about these cuts or worried about what DOJ is doing. Do you have concerns that that's anything that Democrats will be able to use to run against those Republicans?
No, because no, I don't. Because the videos you saw of the town halls were for paid protesters in many of those places. These are Democrats who went to the events early and filled up the seats. If the videos had panned outside the building,
you can't argue they were all paid protesters, though, Mr. Speaker.
Many of them were.
A Republican acknowledged they were his constituents.
One Republican acknowledged they were his constituents. That's fantastic. Okay, but they had Democrats come and fill the seats early, all right? This is an old playbook that they pulled out and ran, and it made it look like that what is happening in Washington is unpopular.
First of all, yes to what Caitlin said, that these are constituents, but also just because you're a Republican member of a district doesn't mean that you don't have Democratic constituents, and they can, just like their Republican counterparts, go and voice their concerns at town halls. But what Speaker Johnson said there about polling, he appears to be citing a recent Harvard Capps Harris poll that found 77% say a full examination of all government expenditures is necessary. However, a recent Washington Post Ipsos poll found that just 34% approve of the job Elon Musk is doing within the federal government. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Hillary Scholten of Michigan. Thanks for joining us here on set. So you see the speaker there saying that it's Democratic protesters. We don't have any indication of that. And Republican lawmakers even said, yeah, these are my constituents, even if they're wary of the fact that they have to go to these town halls. But what's your reaction when you hear them saying that?
Well, it sounds so dismissive to these constituents who have taken their time to come out and voice their concerns. And again, you know, just as though they're claiming there is all this rampant fraud and abuse without any evidence, they're making these unfounded claims and disastrously telling the members of their body not to hold town halls. It is so critically important that we are showing up and listening to our constituents right now. And I can tell you, I've had the exact opposite experience.
Last week, and you're not in a deep blue area.
I am the first Democrat in a century to hold the seat that I am sitting in right now. Last week when I was home, we went to have a meeting in a township in my district that is deep red. Trump won the township by close to 18 points. And the meeting was actually supposed to just be with the township leadership about some municipal issues. But as with all public meetings, they noticed it. And 50 people showed up. We thought we were going to hear all kinds of pushback against me, you know, trying to hold Trump and Musk accountable. But what we heard was story after story from people who were terrified about the rampant cuts, who were horrified that an unelected billionaire, Trump's top campaign donor, has potentially access to their taxpayer data. When I told them about my bill, the CLEAR Act and the Taxpayer Data Protection Act, they stood up and cheered because they were so grateful to see someone pushing back against this agenda, against something that completely cuts them out of this process. You know, Ali, you're exactly right mentioning this polling about people who are okay with an overview of the spending. I have repeatedly said we should be having a major audit right now of where our spending is. If there is fraud, let's find it. Let's see the proof. Let's root it out. But then decisions about how to make those cuts need to come through Congress, right? It is constitutionally defined because that's how the people get a say.
And that's one of the things that actually means, it's actually one of the ways that Musk is impacting now these conversations about keeping the government open. I mean, when you talk to your Democratic colleagues, I had one of your colleagues say to me the other day, there's a mandate now for the government to shut down because of what Musk is doing. Do you see it that way? Would you shut the government? Would you allow that to happen?
I am going to do everything in my power to continue to work to keep the government open, but we're going to do it in a fiscally responsible way. And, you know, if they're telling us there's all this fraud, and yet they want to raise the debt ceiling, you know, now they're talking about a continuing resolution.
Right.
Why are we going to continue doing it in this way if they apparently have evidence of fraud and abuse? But I know the impact that a government shutdown will have.
Yeah.
And I am one of the most bipartisan members of Congress. I still stand here today saying we're going to work with you to try to keep the government open, but we've got to get down to business here and you know, start getting a budget that we can pass by March 14th. That is right around the corner.
You also are from a state that has a ton of attention on it, both because it's a swing state, Michigan, of course, but then also because there's a bunch of higher office positions that are currently open, including a Senate seat vacated by Gary Peters. You know, I have to ask you, are you thinking about that seat?
You know, I am laser focused on West Michigan and serving my constituents right now.
So sounds
you
like
know,
no.
we are listening to the deep concerns in the district, and especially after being home last week and hearing, you know, about how terrified people are. I know that right now my main focus is on serving them, making sure that we can push back against some of these unconstitutional overreaches that we are seeing from the executive branch.
Thank you so much for bringing us the experience on the ground and then also how it's translating back in the halls of Congress. Democratic Congresswoman Hillary Scholten of Michigan, thank you for joining us.